Hello again to all subscribers and listeners of this channel. Today I will be reviewing Attack on Titan Season 3, Episode 11, entitled Bystander. And as far as I'm concerned, this is another flashback episode. No, this is another flashback episode, but it's also another episode where we see a lot of what happened to Grisha and Eren Yaeger through the eyes of Commandant Keith Shadis. As far as I'm concerned, this flashback we see Shadis tell the story of what it means to see people as special and or above average, believing that people have to be special in order to make a difference in the world. And we also see how many people in life either underestimate, overestimate, or greatly misjudge their own capabilities when it comes to their own life path. I consider this another slightly less so but also profound episode that causes us as viewers to take another look at humanity. But without any further ado, let's go. First thoughts. So after the defeat of Rod Rice, his Titan form, Eren gaining his new hardening ability, the new device that's being used to kill Titans very easily without almost any loss of life, and the possibility of retaking Wall Maria, our favorite characters seem way too depressed than we expect them to be. So what's going on? Well then, let's see. Plot. In the very beginning, we see the now Queen Historia playing with a bunch of orphan children. Jean, Armin, and Eren are watching. We see a slight flashback scene of Queen Historia and Captain Levi discussing how to create an orphanage for many of the orphan children who live in certain districts. We then see the Executioner from Hell being used by Hanji and the garrison forces to kill Titans with great success. Next, we see Eren and the squad in the mess hall cafeteria area, and Eren seems troubled by something. He's trying to remember someone his father met many years before Eren was even born. Eventually, Eren realizes who this mystery man is. It's a younger version of Keith Shadis from like 20 years ago. Upon realizing this, Eren and his group rushes over to find Commandant Keith Shadis and ask him how he knows Grisha Yaeger, Eren Yaeger's father, and what type of relationship they had. So once they're in the office, Keith starts off by telling how he met Grisha when Grisha Yaeger was wandering around outside Wall Maria in an amnesiac state. They quickly became friends as Grisha heads off to be a doctor while Keith becomes commander of the scout regiment. Unfortunately for Keith Shadis, Grisha's life gets better overall, whereas his own life gets more difficult and faces more hurdles. Grisha becomes a medical hero for the district that he's in. He marries Carla, and eventually they give birth to their son Eren. Keith, on the other hand, overestimates his commander abilities, loses many of his men to a horrible recon mission. He gives up being commander and passes on his commander role to Erwin Smith. He never gets to be with Carla and obviously cannot form a family with her. It is during this time that he and Carla have an interesting conversation about being special and what it means to be a special human being and how important that is. And they disagree, but I'm going to get to that later. Years later, about maybe 10 years later or so, there's the breach of Wall Maria. So this is just right after the breach of Wall Maria. Keith has spent quite a few years training new cadets instead of being a commander, whereas Grisha, just right after the breach of the wall, has decided to take Eren into the forest. He painfully tells Keith that this is a family situation and Keith must stay out of it. Keith obeys, and later he picks up an unconscious Eren and brings him back to the district. We cut back to the present as Keith tells the story of how foolish he was for believing in his own abilities and how he thought he could help humanity. But in that one conversation with Carla asks Keith a very good question, one that he doesn't really seem to have a good answer for, if I remember correctly. The episode ends with Eren perfecting his balancing ability in the ODM or 3DM gear test, despite Keith's attempts to sabotage it. And that gives off this vibe that Keith somehow sees something special or great in Eren, and we're not sure if anyone else can see that. Interesting things I noticed about this episode. Very sad but interesting things. 1. It's somewhat obvious that Keith not only knew Carla longer than Grisha did, but he had some type of feelings for her. Feelings that eventually unfortunately never manifested. 2. Keith decided to become a scout commander. Unfortunately, his missions were not very successful, and the woman he wanted to be with ended up choosing the doctor that saved her life instead. So there's a lot of failures that Keith Shadis went throughout his life that he had to deal with as best as he could. 3. Grisha and Keith remained good friends, yet there were things Grisha was a part of that were both a gift and a curse that Keith could not understand nor play too much of a part in at all. Another major blow to him that he had to just take on the chin and keep moving on. 4. Keith played a role in Eren's life that seemed small and insignificant at first, but was actually quite major when one looks at it from another angle. Both of them seem to overestimate their role that they could play in terms of being an asset to humanity. Yet Carla does ask a good question that both of them need to really think about. And here's the question that she asked in that earlier conversation when she's holding the baby Eren. Here's her question. 5. When Keith is telling her, you have to be special. He's not nothing special about any of us. Carla asks, why does he have to be special? That's the question that Carla asks Keith. And it is a fair question when you think about it. Many times in life, ordinary people can make a change in the world, just like extraordinary people can. But most human beings don't seem to see it that way. Very interesting. Now, as far as the animation quality, another episode of superb animation. Just get that out of the way. Best about the episode, the best in this episode was seeing the other parts of the story as to how Eren got his powers, who Grisha Yaeger was, what Grisha Yaeger did, and what happened in between the wall breach and the beginning of Eren's training to join the scouts. All of this from what is at first seemed like an unlikely source, but it came from Commander Keith Shadis, or Commandant Keith Shadis. The worst about the episode, again, there weren't anything really bad about this episode, but there was something that was kind of odd to me, and there was that to me, there was something kind of odd about Grisha Yaeger's speech style in the beginning. At the very beginning of the flashback, he seemed just a little too wooden, I guess. Something about his speaking just didn't seem to have enough character to me. Maybe they had something to do with the amnesia, I don't know, but that seemed kind of odd to me at the beginning. It got better later on in the episode, though, so it was only a very small, minor thing that I thought was kind of weird, but other than that, there's nothing wrong with this episode. Now, as far as my favorite scene, it's hard to say. I think there is a favorite scene, but I'm going to put up against 2 other scenes that I liked. So here's from 3 to 1. Number 3, I'll say Eren being hugged by his mother when he was a baby was a really good scene. The second best scene, or second favorite scene, was Shadis giving his leadership away to Erwin Smith, and him basically relinquishing his role because he just didn't have confidence in his abilities anymore. It was sad, but it was very poignant, and actually played a major role in the setup for the future events of the story. But the top favorite scene in this episode was the scene where Shadis finds Eren asleep just after Eren devours his own father. All of which were well executed scenes throughout the entire episode. And I think I'll probably go far, like I said, I think this would be my favorite one. He's taking Eren back to the district after he finds him unconscious in the forest. He doesn't know exactly what happened, but he knows that he has to help Eren anyway, as best as he can. Also, I also really loved when Eren was defending Keith from Hanji's scathing towards the end of the episode. Thanks, Eren. To me, that was quite admirable for you to defend Keith when, as far as Eren is concerned, all Keith was doing was expressing what was going on and what he went through these past 20 years. So, he was being a little bit protective, and that just shows that his character is not only really likable, but he's growing as a person, as an Eren Yaeger. Now, as far as a 1 to 10 score, this episode gets a 9 out of 10, only because there's a bit less action and because the character has less to do with the overall plot, and its monologue is not quite as deep, but is in its own way very profound as a philosophy in this episode. Even though it's not as profound as the philosophy in episode 10, it's still very good teaching moments when it comes to understanding how human beings view themselves in reality. It was still a very insightful episode. I really do think I learned something from it, and I think other people can learn something from it too if they watch it very carefully. As far as the overall summary, this was another good flashback episode. An episode that taught us more about humanity. What it showed me was that there are human beings out there who at first strive for greatness. During this time, they may overestimate their abilities. They then fail at achieving what they wanted, and they lose out on the life that they wanted to live. They then start doubting themselves. They even see themselves as useless or as a useless bystander, when in reality they're wrong. They may not have been meant to live that life that they thought they wanted, and they're not a useless bystander either. They're not special. But then again, like Carla said, they may not have to be. Regardless of the life path that they choose, they can and often do play an important role within humanity, and they do play important roles in other people's lives, even if they themselves don't recognize it. That's what I got from this episode. That's what I learned, and I hope that's what you learned when you watch it also. But with that being said, that's all for now. Please like, subscribe, share, and donate to support this channel and its content. You all have a nice day. I'm out. Peace.